Hi guys, the story I'm going to share with you today comes from Oak Hill, West Virginia. Before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let's get into it. Raylee Jolene Browning was born on July 11, 2010. At first, her biological mother, Janice Riston, was not actively involved in her life. Raylee has been living with her father, Marty Browning, since she was an infant. The abuse started right away with Raylee being seen for injuries at the hospital in 2011 when the first of her hospitalizations for various injuries occurred. Raylee and her father moved in his girlfriend's home, Sherie Titchenelle, along with her 3 children and her sister, Sherie Titchenelle. Sherie was the main caretaker of the 4 children in the household. Raylee was singled out by Sherie because she was not one of her sister's biological children. Julie also had a biracial daughter that Sherie would also single out because she was of the mixed race. However, Raylee took the brunt of the abuse. The photos shown to the jury during the trial included close-ups of Raylee's stomach, neck, leg, back, and forehead. Each of the pictures showed some type of bruising, scrape mark, or scab that could be seen on Raylee's body. A photo of Raylee's right leg also showed a second-degree burn mark. For a while, Raylee was sent to Mount Lookout Elementary School in Nicholas County, West Virginia. Teachers noticed she was bruised and hungry and called Child Protective Services multiple times, and nothing was done. Over the course of the year and a half that Raylee attended Mount Lookout, which included her kindergarten year and half of her first grade, a teacher made 3 referrals to CPS for abuse she observed on Raylee. Only 2 of those referrals were brought up in court, one made because of Raylee's broken femur in 2018 during her kindergarten year. When Raylee started to complain of leg pain and refused to stand or walk, Raylee was accused of faking her injury by the adults in the household, though she was later taken to a hospital and diagnosed with a broken femur. The other referral was when Raylee was in the 1st grade, and it was after Raylee showed her bruises and scabs on her legs. This teacher was never interviewed by CPS, along with the other teachers that had also made reports. A CPS employee testified that she was part of at least 2 of the referrals that investigated the alleged abuse Raylee received. She said those claims of abuse were found to be unsubstantiated. Prosecuting attorney Brian Parson asked the CPS employee about the referral that the teacher had testified to have made regarding Raylee's broken femur in 2018. The employee says she was never notified of such a referral. Sherie made Raylee lie to CPS, and Raylee did as she was told because she feared Sherie. But not long, Sherie couldn't think of any other lies to tell CPS to explain Raylee's injuries, so she pulled her out of school to homeschool her instead. This is one of the most common ways to isolate a child and cover their abuse. They didn't even allow Raylee to talk to the other children in the home. The abuse of Raylee escalated to her death once she left public school. Sherie was free to abuse Raylee as much as she wanted without anyone noticing or reporting it. Sherie was in a homeschool group, so all the children in the home were homeschooled, but Raylee was the only one that was not actually being educated. Instead, Sherie took the opportunity to impose more abuse on Raylee. She was made to stand in one place for hours or walk back and forth in the hallway of the home. Why didn't anyone from the homeschool group report this? Puzzles me. Raylee and Sherie shared a bedroom where Raylee was forced to wear a diaper since she would often wet the bed, not surprisingly considering the abuse, and sleep on the floor. At some point, she had learned she could leave her room at night when Sherie was sleeping and go to the kitchen to eat. The adults then put an alarm and lock on the bedroom door so that Raylee could not get food at night. Raylee was on 7 medications for autism and mood disorders. It is unclear if Raylee had autism and psychiatric disabilities or not. It does not appear that she ever got a real diagnosis. She was likely a victim of medical child abuse. Dr. Joan Phillips, a child abuse expert at Charleston Area Medical Center, was asked to review the case by the Fayette County Prosecuting Attorney's Office and publish a report based on her findings. As part of her review, Phillips looked at medical reports from Dr. Michelle Staton, Raylee's pediatrician since 2014, Dr. Brandon Workman, a psychiatrist who treated Raylee for 2 years, Child Protective Services, and other medical visits Raylee had in about the last 4 years of her life. Dr. Phillips testified that she came to the determination after reviewing the several medical reports. They were conflicting. She added that these reports relied on representations made by Raylee's father and Julie regarding Raylee's symptoms, which varied based on which doctor they brought Raylee to for treatment. Dr. Phillips also testified about the several discrepancies in Raylee's medical reports. Raylee's pediatrician, nor Dr. Workman, was made aware of Raylee's broken femur. However, Phillips said records from a second psychiatrist who Raylee saw after starting treatment with Workman indicated that professionals was told of the 2015 injury. Phillips said the report stated that during a visit with the second psychiatrist, Marty and Julie requested a note to homeschool Raylee because of the cast for the fractured femur. The medications also gave them the opportunity to use her disability to say that she caused her own injuries. Sherie decided to punish Raylee by not giving her anything to drink for 3 days. This is another pattern of child torture cases. It is very common that children are restricted from having any food or anything to drink. Raylee was so thirsty, she drank from the toilet. Let me repeat that. This baby was so thirsty that she drank from the toilet. Not having enough to drink was ultimately what killed Raylee. December 26, 2018, Raylee went septic, and after she became unconscious, Sherie called 911. Now, Raylee went septic, but they didn't even call 911 until she became unconscious. So this baby laid sick all day and all night on Christmas Day. She's supposed to be enjoying her Christmas, like what all little 8-year-old girls do on Christmas Day. Enjoy Christmas. But no, instead this baby is sick. She's sick all day. She's sick all night. Next day after Christmas, she becomes unconscious. Then they decide to take her to the hospital, or Sherie decides to call 911. As Sherie carried Raylee out to the ambulance, Angela Coleman, an EMT working with Jan Care Services, was the first to see her. Sherie had told Angela and her partner that Raylee had fallen while getting out of the shower. They were called to the home because they were informed that a child was having a seizure. So, of course, they're confused. Coleman said that Raylee was not breathing and her body was blue when she was handed to her by Sherie. She testified that she also noticed when her partner lifted Raylee's shirt to attach a defibrillator pad, bruises were all over her body. A team of 5 to 6 nurses worked to save Raylee, giving her IV fluids and medicine, checking her heart rhythm, giving her CPR, and performing other life-saving measures. However, Raylee was pronounced dead at 12:27 p.m., 32 minutes after arriving in the ER. Markings led medical staff to believe that Raylee was abused. As a result, they did not allow her father or his wife, Julie, to see her body. Doctors could tell that Raylee had been sick for some time and felt that they waited too late to get Raylee medical help. A toxicology report showed that Raylee was extremely dehydrated when she came to the hospital. It was unlikely Raylee was able to sit up or stand, or let alone take a shower on her own on the day of her death due to severity of her symptoms. West Virginia medical examiner Dr. Alan Mock testified that Raylee was showing outward symptoms including shortness of breath, fever, and the skin rash for days prior to her death. Raylee's last words on the record, at least, "I want to go to the hospital." She was desperate to save her life. Because Raylee was covered in bruises, the authorities were contacted. When Oak Hill Police Department interviewed the adults, everyone gave a conflicting story as to why Raylee had died and why she was covered in injuries. The police became suspicious and started an investigation. Sherie first told the police that Raylee got sick that Christmas Day and had suffered a nosebleed related to prescribed medications. Then she said Raylee fell while getting out of the shower and was shaking while her lips turned white. This is a reason given by child abusers to explain why a child is injured. They fell getting out of the shower. One of the number one reasons. During a search of the home, police found a hammer and an adult toy in the bedroom Raylee shared with Sherie. Sherie could not explain why either of those two objects were in the room. She know why they were in there. She know exactly why they're in there. The medical examiner reported that Raylee passed away from an infection likely caused by drinking toilet water, which led to syphilis caused by a bacterial pneumonia infection that likely manifested over several days. In December 2019, a year after Raylee's death, all three adults were charged. Each was charged with 1 count each for death of a child by parent, guardian, or custodian, and child neglect causing death, both felonies. After more than 3 years of waiting for justice to be served for her daughter, Raylee's biological mother, Janice Riston, says she is relieved that the trial is finally over. Riston said that Marty's crimes were far more worse than Julie and Sherie's. How Marty could have missed all the signs that their child was sick or the other signs of abuse prior to Raylee's death, which included a broken femur and significant weight loss. "You failed, Marty, horribly," Riston said. "Yes, Julie and Sherie did take part, but you and I had the obligation to take care of our daughter." Julie's 15-year-old daughter spoke in the sentencing hearing for Julie and Sherie and asked that the judge give both the maximum sentence. "As much as I hate to see the people I grew up with go through this, I think they deserve it. And I hope that justice is served for Raylee and they get the sentence that is needed to show that they did wrong. I lived with Sherie for 11 years, the 15-year-old said. They were the worst 11 years of my life. Sherie never liked Raylee, pointing out that Sherie purposely cut Raylee's hair short so it would not resemble Rapunzel, Raylee's favorite princess. You are not a good person, and I cannot forgive you for what you did," the teen said. Fayette County Circuit Judge Paul Blake, who sentenced all three defendants separately, told Raylee's father, Marty Browning, any decent father would have scooped her up and took her to get help. Blake chided Marty Browning for going to sleep on Christmas night while his little girl was dying. "You went to sleep that night while your child was dying and you didn't care enough to do anything," Blake said. "Where is your decency?" Judge Blake asked Julie during her sentencing. "You stood by and watched this child die." Julie at the time was the reigning Miss Oak Leaf Festival. Her title has since been stripped. Blake told Sherie, "I don't think you cared what happened to her. The person showed the most emotion was the EMS person you handed Raylee's body to. If you had taken the steps of any caring, human individual, she would be alive today." Blake added during each of the sentences that there were a few moments from the trial that he would not soon forget. The first is testimony given by Julie's 15-year-old and a few others, stating that the defendants dehydrated Raylee to the point that she was forced to drink out of a toilet. "I can't get that picture out of my head," Blake said. "On her knees, her head in the toilet, because you and these women could not give her proper hydration." He added that the next image that stays with him is from the EMS driver who showed up to the home on the day that Raylee's death was reported. Blake said the EMS driver, a stranger to Raylee, showed more emotion during her testimony than any of the defendants during the entire trial. Each was sentenced to an indeterminate sentence with a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 15 years. This sentence is the standard set in state code. As in the case with the indeterminate sentences, after serving the minimum required years, the 3 defendants will become eligible for parole. The 3 could have faced a life sentence but were found by a jury to not be guilty of the charge of child abuse resulting in death, which carried the heavier sentence. They were also sentenced to 5 years of extended supervised relief. Now, I don't agree that they were not charged with child abuse resulting in death. It was clear that their neglect caused her death. So I don't understand how the jury didn't find them guilty of that. I mean, look at the medical reports. Like, look at the things that they were doing as far as the abuse. I mean, a broken femur bone? Come on. That lets them know the severity of the abuse that Raylee was suffering. This baby is dehydrated. If she was fed properly and given liquids properly, she would have never died. So how did they come to the conclusion that the child abuse did not result in her death? They were also sentenced to 5 years of extended supervised release. State law does not require homeschool educators to report suspected child abuse or neglect. By contrast, teachers and public school administrators are mandatory reporters of child abuse. They face a criminal misdemeanor conviction for up to 90 days in jail and up to a $5,000 fine for failing to report child abuse or neglect. Those who fail to report a sexual assault face 6 months in jail and up to $10,000 in fines. And state law does not require a homeschool education cooperative or association to verify that member students were legally withdrawn from public school. Raylee's law was introduced in 2019 by Ohio County legislator Delegate Sean Fluharty to safeguard homeschool kids. This bill has gained national attention. The amendment drew pushback from other delegates, particularly over the provision to prevent homeschool transfers during pending investigations. Some asked whether school officials could be expected to know for sure if an investigation is underway. Delegate Brandon Steele characterized the amendment as insulting to homeschool parents like his own family. He made reference to comments sometimes made about policies that could motivate people to leave the state. For homeschool parents, he said the feeling would be the same about the amendment under consideration. Flat out garbage that does nothing but belittle homeschool parents. This is about doing the right thing, protecting the children from abusers, Fluharty said. This may be an inconvenience on homeschoolers, and it may be. Go ask Raylee how inconvenience is right now. You have to visit her gravesite. Raylee's law will allow county boards of education to reject a request for homeschooling by a parent if there is a pending child abuse or neglect investigation against a parent, guardian, and or a person serving as a child's instructor. It would also prohibit homeschooling by a parent, guardian, or instructor who has been convicted of domestic violence, child abuse, or neglect. County school superintendents would be required to develop policies to ensure they are informed of abuse or neglect reports. The Department of Human Resources would have 48 hours to confirm the investigation and 14 days to investigate the complaint. If the 2-week deadline wasn't met, the superintendent would authorize home instruction. February 2024, Fluharty closed the debate by holding up a giant photo of Raylee. He said, "The only attack this is on child abusers. That's the target today, and fixing the CPS system. If there is one duty I believe we have as a body is to be a voice for the voiceless." The voice vote on the amendment was divided, and the and Speaker Roger Hanshaw called it for adoption. The bill itself then passed 99-0 and went to the Senate. It is far too easy to pull a child out of public school away from mandated reporters and keep them isolated in the home, where abusers often escalate to homicide, just like the case of Raylee. Alright guys, make sure you have a great week. I pray that everybody has a great Easter. Take care of you. Bye-bye until next time.